Welcome back to the studio and to another beginner sketchbook prompt tutorial. Today we're going to be doing prompt number 7. We're going to be sighting, and we're going to use just one aspect of the method of sighting to sketch out a pet. You can use this with any of your own photographic resources. Sighting can be used to draw from life, and there are lots of different ways to do sighting. So we're just going to delve into one little aspect of it using horizontal and vertical lines, a couple angles, thinking about positive and negative space. And I just wanted to preface this tutorial by telling you a little bit about its application. You can use a photo that's much smaller, and you can use this method to scale it larger if you're going to draw something larger. You can also take a photo and scale it smaller as well. It's an alternative to, say, gridding, but you're still checking all of your proportion. You're still aiming for realism. And once you learn this technique, you can apply it to all of your drawing, which is pretty exciting. So we're just going to use a drawing of my dog today because I thought pets would be a great subject matter because they're shaped so differently. Every animal has its own size ears and angles of ears and length of legs and very unique features and things like that. So it's kind of fun to practice some deep observation on your furry loved one. But absolutely feel free to use any photographic resource, and you're welcome to sketch along with me from mine, but everything that I am teaching you, you can absolutely apply to your own pet today. Your own pet or your own subject matter today. Look at this cutie pie. I mean, let's dive in. Today the supplies we're using are just simple graphite pencils. These are Faber-Castell 2B, 4B, 6B. I've got an eraser and a sharpener, and that's pretty much all I think that we're going to need today. So I've got my reference here from the tip of her head to the end of her muzzle. Not quite the width of her whole body over here. Where else can I look? Right behind her leg here. So tip of head to, I'm not marking it with my thumb, I'm marking it with this finger right here. It looks to be the same as from her sort of tail to top of butt, right behind the leg. Now that requires, I know the behind the leg, where that's going to be here. Let's say it's right here. I'm just guessing where I'm going to put it. So there's one measurement there, and it'll be the same as from head to tip of muzzle. And so we just make those measurements, like this measurement from here to here is the same as from here to here. What else can we do? We could do the width of her muzzle. I'm marking it with my finger here. Width of her muzzle. Same as width of tip of ear to head. If I go just straight along like this, not here, but this angle right here. So the width of her muzzle. Now on this page it's going to be a lot smaller. We're going to have, we have to actually do some gesture sketching. You can't just measure nothing, right? We have to kind of get our gesture in here, but I'm just showing you the principle. Basically, okay, let's say her muzzle is that wide. We're going to also make her ear from there to there, that wide. So you can do one-to-one measurements. Got my little sighting cheat sheet here. You can do one-to-one measurements, like 1 unit here equals 1 unit here. 1 unit here equals 1 unit here. Or you can do other things like little portions. So, for example, you could do the width of her muzzle. Let's do it with my thumb here. Width of her muzzle is 2.5. Her head is 2.5 of those. So width of muzzle. And then I measured from this side of the muzzle, so right there, width of muzzle, mark, mark, and half. So you can use portions. For example, what I just did there was 1 unit to 3 units, or 2.5. So the width of muzzle is 2.5 measurements high, and then I'm not articulating it well, but you can see what I'm doing. That her head is 2.5 muzzles. Does that make sense? 2.5 muzzles. So you can use a unit and break it down into smaller parts. We do that a lot. We do things like this is another one. So we've already done this, like 1 unit, and then how many of those fit into another space. But you can also do 1 unit and then looking at, okay, maybe the width of her muzzle, the width of her nose. It's a little hard to show because it's kind of small, but let's do the width of her nose. Okay, from here to here is half the width of her whole muzzle. So let's drop in the width. Let's say this is the width of her nose. Okay. We're saying that's the width of her nose from there to there. And we need to make sure that the muzzle is 2 widths, two nose widths. So you can use it like that. That is a very, very common way to use it when we're looking at still lives and stuff, or maybe even the figure. I don't know, not figure gesture, but if we had a still figure for a couple hours, we would do this. I've done this with portraiture just to make sure things are in the right place. That is one application, but it's not the easiest application, and it's not what we're going to focus on today. I just want you to know that is part of what sighting is. It would be wrong for me to say we're learning sighting without explaining that there's so many different ways to apply it and use it, and that we're going to do one particular thing. So we're going to focus on verticals, horizontals. These are the easiest thing. When my students are overwhelmed with sighting, I focus on just helping them find verticals and horizontals. What I mean by that is, let's look here at the side of her head, right? And we just draw a straight line in our minds from the side of her head straight down to see what other things it hits. So if we draw straight down, her paw is going to go past, and this part of her arm is not quite going to hit. It's going to be inside. So if this is the side of her head, let's say it's right here. We don't know yet. This is me just showing you the principle first, but then we're going to actually go back and draw this properly. But basically, notice how the paw, if this really was the side of her head, the paw should be extending beyond it, like we saw right here, right? And then this arm would be inside of it, so about this far over. And when we do sighting lines like this, it helps you see the negative space. So I can see this sliver between head and arm and how big that shape is going to be. And it's going to be smaller than what I had it, like skinnier. And so what sighting does is allows us to look at negative space a lot. That's really, really, really important. It helps us see negative space a lot easier. And negative space is just such an important part of observation. So if we were doing horizontals, we might do something like taking the bottom of this right paw and carrying it across and seeing where it intersects that paw. So if this is the bottom, we know this paw is going to go all the way over to here. Run away. And this paw doesn't quite come down to that line. So let's say this is the bottom. The other paw will be way over here, but it's going to be up higher. You can see that just by doing your horizontals. So another thing you could do is look at her eyes, right? Her head's tilted, so they're not on a flat line. So this would be an easy way to say, the bottom of her left or her right eye, it almost lines up with the top of her right eye. See that? If it's a little hard for you to see, I could show you with a piece of paper that bottom of her left eye. If we just draw a perfect horizontal line right across in our minds, we barely see her left. It's almost hidden. These are some of the things that become more and more noticeable as you go. So that's verticals and horizontals. You can also cite angles as well by thinking of the hands of a clock. So see 3 o'clock, perfect 90-degree angle, but you might have 1 o'clock angle, 2 o'clock angle, things like that. So you kind of just hold your pencil over top saying, okay, if this was an arm on the clock, what is it pointing to? If this is 6 o'clock, 5, somewhere between 5 and 4, it looks like a 4 o'clock angle. Does that make sense? So this is 6, 3, 4, 5. So we kind of hold our pen over what a 4 o'clock angle would look like. It's almost there. It's a bit facing down. It's a bit closer to 5 o'clock. It's somewhere between 4 and 5 o'clock. But that's how we can look at angles. So those are, I'm going to say angles here. So we've got verticals, horizontals, and angles. And think of a clock. Hands of a clock. As I said, verticals and horizontals are the simplest, and we're going to use them today. So I'm going to switch back to my 2B. All right, I'm going to start with a gesture. My drawing's going to be smaller than my reference. I actually have this projected on my large monitor, so it's even bigger than the drawing I'm making here. Look how basic. Seriously, trying to not do much here, but block in the whole shape, just to see, hey, can I fit the whole dog in here? And at the same time, I'm kind of getting some of the angles in. Staying kind of geometric. You don't have to do that at all. But since we're going to be talking about angles, I thought, why not? This arm comes out to the side before it angles down, and we're going to have to work on getting that angle correct, but right now I'm just doing a gesture. So many rolls here around the neck. Jeez Louise. Her collar, her name tag is somewhere around here. Neck roll number 1. Buckle. Neck roll number 2 is humongous. Oh my goodness. I'm looking at the shapes too. I see that this is kind of like a long sliver, like a melting piece of pizza or something. I actually prefer to do this stage a lot lighter. As I usually say in my tutorials to you, I'm doing it a bit darker because I want you to be able to see what I'm doing, but I would highly recommend staying lighter a little bit longer. This ear is folding, but it's folding towards us, so we don't get that same sort of side, the shape that we'd see if we were looking at it from the side. It's kind of folding towards us, which is a bit of an awkward angle, but that's okay. And her face is aimed that way, so we actually see more of the side of this side of her face right here. I'm making this bigger. I'm probably gonna have to shift some things over. That's okay. We can start making some measurements. I want to zoom in on the drawing for you. So it looks like I have the angle of the top of the head like this, and then we carry it over here and it's not correct. See that? This is the angle of the top of her head if we've lined up the reference perfectly. And so I'm just going to hold that angle right here. Literally, it's so... I should have printed this lighter so you could see me drawing these lines, but you can see me analyzing that angle and trying to carry it over here. It's very flat, so this ear needs to come up a little bit. Her head's almost flat here, dips down, tip of the ear touches it, and then curves away. Her eye line is going to be really similar. I'm holding the reference closer to me so I can see what's going on. I always encourage you to do the hard parts first. I never want you to like focus in and get hyper into one little area right away, because we want to keep working general to specific. You always hear me say that, general to specific. But I really do just want to get something the right size, or the size I want it, and then we'll adjust everything else around to match it. I think this eye is already too large. But maybe not, I don't know. Feels too large. Or maybe this eye is just needs to be moved over more. When you're drawing pets, the little dark areas that show up, like for example in her eyebrows, they add a lot of personality. It's a part of what makes the eye look like them. So don't just pay attention to the shape of the eye, also pay attention to the coloring around it, because that's what a lot of the character of your animal, their expression, is going to come through there. Looks like I've got a dark patch that comes down here and then swoops over. Bit of a dark patch on top of the nose, or muzzle rather, and then nose itself. We're going to do top of nose, and then obviously it curves down. So I'm thinking about the structure of it, not just like the front of it. That happens a lot when people are doing portraits of humans even. They'll think like eye, okay, eye is eye-shaped, yay. Now this should look realistic, why doesn't it? And it's because the eye is not just a set of lines or like a shape that's on an oval. An eye is actually, it's a whole sphere that's sunken into a skull, and it's really hard. You can draw the human face or any face with line. I'm getting on a little detour here, but that's okay. You can draw it with line. It can end up being a bit stylized. We want to remember that the eye is actually a sphere set within the skull, set within like a cavern in the skull, and it's a sphere that's covered by eyelids, and so it's three-dimensional. It's not just an outline. So when I'm drawing the dog nose, I'm trying not to just do this like dog nose. I'm trying to say, okay, well, it's a weird sort of kind of shape like this. The sides angle in. There's little holes here, the nostril. And top is flat, but it does have a bit of a sloped side here, things like that. There's my beautiful nose drawing. Anyway, I'm trying to think of things structurally, think of things three-dimensionally. Part of my problem is that My pencil's getting dull really quickly. And this is kind of a tiny drawing, so keep things like that in mind. It's just practical. If you're going to draw a small drawing, you're going to have to keep your pencil sharp so that your lines remain appropriate width for the actual size of the drawing. Okay, let's get in the side of the muzzle here. I'm really wishing I had drawn this a lot larger for you. You live, you learn. Next time I'll turn my sketchbook page on its side. We've started to get a bit of a face here. So tiny and not very accurate. We could just focus on the body for a bit because you'll get the principle that way. Tail's coming towards us. Starts back here, but then it goes floofy. And if we don't know what size it is, we just do a simple measurement. The floof, the height of the floof is the same height as, way bigger than her ears, same height as, almost as this ear over here. Oh, it's the same width of the muzzle, that works. Width of muzzle, same as height of tail floof. So I made it too large originally. So I'm going to shrink it down. Tail floof has to be smaller. This is paw, toe beans, nails, and she's got her leash kind of wrapped around here. Her tummy, her white fluff comes up and into this leg. Notice that if we just continue that line, it's going to cut into that leg a little, and here we matched it perfectly. So it's small things like that that you're going to make sense of. I also think that if I'm looking at the negative space here between, you know, belly and paw, it's not this big. So I need to, this is what I need to change, the size of this, not the size of the leg. So you have to adjust the right thing, right? You can't just be like, okay, I'm gonna make my leg bigger. Well, you're gonna end up having to make the whole dog bigger. So you might have to shrink some things. You might have to blow some things up. There's quite a lot of elbow floof happening as well. Here's another good thing to measure. Let's check out her the back paw and where it intersects this paw. So it looks like right here. If I draw a line straight across. So we do the same thing on our paper. And that tells me I need to keep going down further. Pretty much this toe starts here, and that toe. It's really helping me get this paw big enough. I was going to make it way smaller, but we have to remember it's coming towards us, so it's going to look enlarged. Compared to our dog, it looks insane right now, but we can always keep adjusting later. Yeah. Here's another thing. We've got these white socks on her, and we can draw a straight line across to see where that intersects. So over here, middle of paw is where her sock is. It's not looking quite right. I'm going to raise it up a little bit. And if we draw a straight line across from there, so you see I'm not actually doing pretty intense measuring. I'm really just drawing straight lines right across the page to see where things hit. For example, bottom of this, or the top of the white sock rather, the top of her left white sock intersects the arm here. So floof. And then kind of right here, let's take that over, and that's the top of this white sock. That tells me we're going to lose that paw. It's going to go way off over here. That's okay. Do you see how suddenly that looks way better? Like things are starting, I mean, it looks, I would never have drawn that arm that long, but because of my measurements, it's helping me capture the correct perspective. So it's making me emphasize and exaggerate a little bit, like really draw attention to these differences in perspective that I truly would not have gotten otherwise. This is the white part right here, this white floof. And then this is fold right here. So I'm looking at shapes. This is fold right here. And then we're into neck roll number 1. Neck roll number 1. And I can see a bit of her collar right here. It's like a little triangle shape and kind of gets hidden under. There's a bit of a buckle showing under her muzzle. And then it just kind of disappears into more glorious neck floof. This is a really big, we're going to call this chin roll number 2. That shape looks about right. And then her head continues up here, and her ear is going to have to come way out here. So do you see how I have her ear like right in front of her head, like right here almost? It's just not coming out very much to the side. But if I draw, like if I do sighting and I look at the very tip of her ear, look how much negative space is in here, this shape. Like the side of her ear is not at the side of her head. At the side of her ear there, it's not wide enough. Her side of her ear comes down and intersects this leg there. So kind of right where the white sock starts. See that? That's how we do the sighting. So then we draw a line straight up from there, and we get the very side of the ear. I mean, it's still curved in on itself, but the actual front, the very tip of the ear is like right here. And this is a fold, and this is the inside of the ear down here. And let's just keep doing vertical lines. Let's look at the very top of the ear. Right here, the very tip, it lines up with not her eye, but the little black patch beside her eye. So tip of ear right here, if we draw it straight down, it should match the side, the little dark spot beside her eye. And then it goes over on an angle, and this angles, by the way, so much easier to see when you make them humongous. So when I'm just looking at this angle right here, it's hard to kind of see what exactly the angle is, but when I put a big piece of paper over it, it's a lot easier to see that this angle is not quite 6 o'clock. It's definitely not 3 or 4. It looks like it's like a 5 o'clock angle. And I can see the angle way better because I've got a large like piece of paper or a ruler or even a pencil. That's pretty much what we do when we're looking at a subject. A live subject is we hold our pencil up. Now, all of this has been using a photo reference, so I haven't explained to you that when you're sighting from a live setup, you are going to have to keep your arm perfectly straight and extended and one eye closed. Because if you move your arm, if your hand moves closer to you or further away, the measurement changes. But if your arm is always straight out in front of you and your one eye is closed, you can make those measurements from the live, like still life setup or the model or whatever's in front of you. And it's really fun to see a whole classroom of people with their arms out and their one eye closed. So this angle we want to be, from this tip, we want to be 5 o'clock angle. A lot easier to see if we do the whole page. So now we have the angle of her ear. Curve it down like that. And then there's like an interior here that's a little bit lighter, floofy white hair, and then it gets pink inside and dark. I'm going to do this angle right here. Let's find out where her left ear. I'm using this page to show you, but normally I would just eyeball this. I would just hold up my pen or whatever and go, okay, end of ear. Definitely it cuts through this neck floof, so end of ear. Look at that, it doesn't cut through the neck floof. You see that difference? It's supposed to cut through the neck floof, but it doesn't. That means it's either the neck floof needs to be bigger or the ear needs to be smaller. So now I have to think about what to change. I could make the ear smaller, but I want to make sure the ear matches this size of this ear. And then maybe the whole body needs to be bigger. I don't know. Let's find out. Okay, we're gonna do some ear measurements. From edge of ear to here is the same as edge of ear to outside. So edge of ear to here, same as edge of ear to outside, and it's not. That's how big that ear would be. So that tells me this ear is way too big. You might be able to see that, but because I'm close to the drawing, like I'm in it, we don't always have the best observational skills when we're too close to or too into. We've been observing it for a while. It's sometimes hard to see our mistakes or our mismeasurements or whatever. Have the ear coming down and it meets the head way above both eyes. It doesn't meet down here. There's a little like extra dark thing that comes down here, but the ear has to definitely meet the head higher above the eyes. Probably not that high. I feel like both my eyes need to be moved up. Edge of this eye. Let's just check out where the eye placement is. Corner of this eye. Almost at the bottom of the ear. Wow. Okay. So if we do that up into our drawing, the corner of that eye should line up with the bottom of this ear, and it certainly doesn't. So we've made the eyes too low. Well, yeah, pretty much. Okay. I'm just making some other little observations about where the top of that eye hits. Not the top, the center of that eye. So the very edge of this eye has to be way up here. And the middle of this eye has to be right here. So that one's not too wrong, but yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Let's move our eyeballs up. It's gonna get quite messy. It'd be a lot easier if this was, if I was drawing lighter, but again, I really want you to see, so just ignore the fact that it's getting really messy. Our goal today isn't to shade everything and make it realistic, but I am adding a tiny bit of shading just to make sure I'm putting things in the right place. If it helps, you can kind of erase some of the measurement lines as you go. Looking at a couple more things. The side of the nose. Where does that hit the rest of the dog? Okay, side of nose hits almost the edge of the eye. So side of nose should be all the heck the way over here instead of over here. So we're gonna move that over. Simple as that. And that should intersect with right here. That's about right. Her little harness. And it keeps going down and it cuts through her arm well before the white sock. So that looks really correct. So I think that the nose definitely needs to move over. If I look at the other side of the nose, it's going to line up perfectly with her name tag, which we don't have in there yet. It's going to cut off a little triangle of this sock here, so that's one indicator. What else does it do? There's a little space between the ear. I think that's our big one right here. So this will be the new edge of the nose. I hope you see how it's okay to rework your drawing as much as you need to. This isn't necessarily like, it's not a drawing I'm proud to share or anything like that. This is me showing you the process, but not the success that you can have with it. This is like really mucky. I've got lines everywhere. I'm just like freaking scribbling in here stuff, but it's more to show the technique or the process than for me to personally right now achieve a nice drawing. I would have stayed way lighter, way longer, probably used lighter than a 2B even. You can see how sighting can be applied to really nice effect. One reason I chose animals or pets for this lesson is because they are so weird shaped. Like every muzzle is shaped a little different based on your breed of dog. You might have an easier time if you have some purebred and like all the Labradoodles look the same or something, like very similar structure. But when you get a mixed breed dog that's like somewhat Chihuahua but somewhat who knows what, you know, she's half Dobby, the house elf from Harry Potter. She's also a portion of Baby Yoda, Grogu, with her ears. This I think is way too high. Shouldn't have just scribbled in the nose, but I was getting, I mean, it's all getting mucky anyway, so maybe I was getting a bit impatient. It won't be this mucky when you're doing it, especially if you keep your measuring lines correct, lighter. This kind of gives me the feeling, all these lines give me the feeling of like organizational line drawing, where we're basically showing all the sighting lines, we're showing our thinking. As I move the muzzle, I'm having to shift everything down. All the things I measured before have to be a bit lower. I'm keeping them in similar proportions, so it's not like I'm completely redrawing them. I'm recognizing that if I adjust something to be down, that I have to keep adjusting everything a little bit to fit the new measurements that I'm figuring out. When I look at this, when I see like the whole width of the head from below ear to below ear should be the same as the height of her butt, or looking for other measurements here, leg to harness, side of head from ear to ear, same as height of butt, or from, what did I decide, from leg to harness, I think right about here, right at her elbow. Leg to harness measurement is a bit wrong. I think it's as simple as this leg needing to come out here. So you'll just keep tweaking until you get closer, but recognize that animals are weird. They're all different shapes and angles, and this is one way, if you stay light and just keep building up, it's one way you can achieve a likeness, or at least maybe we don't worry so much about achieving a likeness today in the face necessarily, but we really want to see, can we Can we get the shape of the dog right? From bottom of paw to top of head. I did think her body looked really small, but I wasn't sure in what way I had misjudged. I think when I first started the gesture, listen, don't be hard on yourself. When you first do the gesture, you're not measuring, and so you're going to get some things like super off, but it doesn't mean you're a bad drawer. It just means that as you get closer to the end, you're going to have to keep making those measurements and adjustments, like how fat is her belly compared to something else, the length of her arm maybe. So just keep it on, keep making these measurements, these adjustments, and eventually something will click and you'll be like, wow, I got it. I got this right. The idea is that we're increasing our accuracy with a new method. Today, I really just want you to only focus on verticals and horizontals. Keep looking for where things line up. Keep asking yourself like the edge of something. So the edge of the ear hits where? The edge of the head hits where down here? Edge of the eye hits what down here? And just keep going across and make those adjustments, make those changes until you've got things in the right space. You might have angles off, you might have whole entire sizes of things off. I made her head way bigger than her body. When we draw humans, we usually make the eyes or the features, eyes, nose, mouth, way bigger on the face than they should be. So using sighting like this is excellent for getting proportions correct on a face. You'll end up with your pet in close to correct proportion. Let me know what you think of vertical and horizontal sighting. And if you'd be interested in more sighting videos, as I mentioned, there's so much more we can talk about. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I'll see you very soon in the next one. Thank you for joining me today and getting some sketching in our sketchbook and practicing the technique, or this aspect of the technique of sighting. And I hope you'll come back soon and hang out and draw with me or paint with me. Next up on our prompt tutorial list is the odd angles, number 8, sketching a simple household item, but from an odd angle. It's going to be super fun. If you want your very own prompt list so you can follow along and check off all of the different things, I think this is a great motivator. You can put it in your sketchbook and you can check off each lesson as you do it to make sure you go through them all and to help you develop a sketchbook practice, a habit, to try new things, even if the result might not be what you expected. It might not be as successful as another sketch, but by pushing yourselves in these different lessons and exercises, the hope is that you're stretching your drawing ability, your observational skills, and you're just breaking through creatively in your sketchbook. If you want to hang out with me more and catch even more in-depth tutorials, you can come join me on my Patreon, where I have memberships starting as little as $3, and there are options, there are levels for critiques and community within there, and you having a say on what lessons come next, what subject matter, things like that. Let's draw together. Okay, bye.